today I want to talk about cancel culture in context of certain stories that have been trending online. Case in point, today I woke up and I saw that Jimmy Fallon is over party was trending on Twitter. So I went to check out this hashtag to see why it was trending, assuming that Jimmy Fallon had some really big blunder, perhaps on a late night talk show, or said something that was inappropriate, only to discover that the reason that they are calling for Jimmy Fallon to be canceled today is because some person who was clearly extremely bored in quarantine decided to look up old Saturday Night Live episodes and stumbled upon one from 20 years ago, from the year 2000, in which Jimmy Fallon has his face painted black as he's playing a character. And that was it. It went viral, and people are now calling for Jimmy Fallon, the guy who has his own show, the guy who's best friends with the Roots player and plays instruments, and who everybody likes because he stays out of politics, is now being canceled by a bunch of people who have lived through nothing. Now, of course, obviously, since he played this part on Saturday Night Live, this clip was made public when it first came out and nobody cared and he was not canceled and people thought it was funny. But now, 20 years later, we have arrived suddenly into a generation where people think nothing's funny, where the internet waits until they can find anything about you, no matter how long ago it took place, and they try to cancel you. Because we are the most obnoxious, annoying, spoiled, overprivileged, worst generation that has ever lived on the face of the planet, right? Because we're bored, because we like to pretend that we're being attacked by clips from 20 years ago that everybody in the world thought was funny. So, cancel Jimmy Fallon. Okay, last night, I am about to get ready to go to bed, and I was like, whoa, I haven't been on Twitter all day. Let me see what's trending. And I saw that the hashtag Karen was trending. For those of you that don't know, Karen is a term that is used. It actually originates from a comedian who, I think it was Dane Cook, correct me if I'm wrong, who made fun of a person named Karen, anonymous person named Karen, who is the friend that nobody likes. So when somebody calls you a Karen, it usually means that you're just being annoying, very extra, and nobody likes you. So we've seen sort of the rebirth of the Karen, if you will, in this coronavirus stuff. A Karen would be someone who calls the police because she sees kids playing in the park. They're not practicing their social distancing. We've seen tons of that. So videos have been going around going, I got a phone call from a Karen today, or I saw a Karen do this in the park, and it's been funny. So I assumed that this hashtag was trending because there was another encounter of a Karen calling the police on kids, but boy, was I wrong. I'm sure by now you guys have seen the clip. If not, I'm going to explain exactly what happens. The clip that is circulating is a white woman in Central Park. There is a black man that is filming the clip, which you figure out by the dialogue. In the clip, the first thing that you see, it's a very short clip, is a woman grabbing her dog in an aggressive manner by the collar. And people were saying this is animal abuse online. And she says to the guy, stop filming me, please stop filming me, goes towards him and tries to get him to stop filming her, like puts her hand up in front of her face and then backs away from him and says, I'm going to call the cops. And he says, then, call the cops. And she says, I'm going to call the cops on and tell him that an African-American is threatening me and my dog. And she calls the cops and she says, there's an African-American man in the park and he is threatening he's threatening my dog and he's threatening my life. And this clip went viral and everyone is saying that this is an example of a woman who called the cops because a guy in the park was black and asked her to put her dog on the leash. Now, I saw this clip and instantly knew that story sounded really stupid, right? Because if you have a thinking brain, you realize you're watching something that has obviously already escalated because she's yoking the dog up. She seems to be panicked. We cannot see what happens before the clip. So instantly I say, there's obviously more to the story. A lot of people are calling for, her dog to be taken away. It actually happened because that is how fast the internet is. She had her dog taken away from her because she was yoking him up in the collar in the video. My thinking brain says, presumably this woman didn't take her dog to the park to choke it. So something in the situation panicked her and she was grabbing the dog and was not paying attention that she was grabbing it somewhat aggressively, trying to get a hold of it. So me, rather than being reactive and playing the internet game, right, I decided to look for the backstory. Not allowed, I know, because everybody in this world suddenly believes that there needs to be somebody who is an ultimate villain and an ultimate victim in every story, and that is never the case. 9 times out of 10, that's not the case. Usually, you can look at both sides and say, here's what you did wrong, and here's what you did wrong. If you're a rational human being, you can look at a situation that is escalated and see how both individuals can contribute to the escalation. But we don't live in that age. Everyone needs black and white, right? It needs to be this person's wrong, this person's white, right? Nobody could admit, even in the Ahmaud Arbery situation, it was not allowed to say that he should not have been trespassing on a private property. If you said that, you were called somebody that was anti-black, anti-black, because I can admit that he had no business trespassing on the property. I can also admit that there was no reason for him to be dead that day. He didn't end up to die that day. But if you say that two people, if you say that you don't see black and white, one person's completely wrong, then somehow in this society, in cancel culture, you're immediately canceled. It's like you're not allowed to say that, right? So we need a little bit more rational thought. So you see this clip, and I went and I pursued the full story, and I found it because actually the person that shot the video posted the full story on Facebook, right? His name, I believe, is Christopher Cooper. Ironically, the woman in the park, the white woman with the dog, her name is Amy Cooper, and Christopher Cooper has decided he posted on his Facebook exactly what happened. And here is the story. Christopher Cooper is in the park, and he is apparently a bird watcher, and he notices that there was a woman who is wearing a mask who is letting her puppy play, and the dog is not on a leash, and he says, not okay. In my opinion, that kind of makes him a Karen. You can do what you want, but it's a puppy playing in the park. It really would be something that I would do. I think that's a Karen quality, but whatever. He has a right to ask her to put her dog on a leash. So he goes over to her and he asks her to put the dog on the leash, right? And he says also to her that she has no business having the dog in this area of the park at all. Apparently the dog was eating plants and he didn't like that, and the dogs are not supposed to be in this area of the park at all. To which point she says to him, all of the dog runs are closed because, as you guys know, New York City has been shut down for a while. So she's like, my dog just needs some exercise and all the dog runs are closed. And then he tells her where she can take her dog, where it's open, somewhere over in the Ramble. I'm not familiar with that area, but he says you can take her to the other side, take the dog to the other side of the Ramble, and she says that side is dangerous. Apparently, that's a dangerous side of the park, and she doesn't want to take her dog there, okay? So at this point, they've had this back forth. She does not want to, he says there's a sign right there that says no dogs, or that the dog has to be on the leash, and he's now telling her that she's got to resolve a situation. She declines to do that, and at that point, he says something that completely escalated the situation. So number one, could she have put her dog on the leash and taken the dog somewhere else? Yes, that could have been the first thing that was done to de-escalate the situation. She instantly could have done that, but she didn't do it, right? So now we get to step 2 of the escalation, which is him saying the wildest thing that anybody would ever say and expect somebody not to react. He then says to her, by his own admission, he says to her, well, if you're going to do what you want to do, then I'm going to do what I want to do, and you're not going to like what I'm going to do, okay? And then he calls her dog over to him. Okay, anybody own dogs on Facebook? Everybody can pretend that that's normal. If you're in a park and a dude says to you, right, you're a woman walking a dog, not walking your dog, I don't know, dog's running around, and he says, well, you're not going to like what I'm going to do, and you're not going to like what I'm going to do next, and then calls your dog over, what is going to go on through your head? Me personally, I would have thought he was going to steal my dog. That would have been my thought. New York City, there are so many crazies. And he starts reaching into his pocket. Who knows what he's going to do? He didn't say, I'm going to give your dog a treat. His story now is that he actually keeps dog treats in his pocket, even though he was not with a dog, and he was going to give her dog a treat. Now, if you're a dog owner, you do not give somebody else's dog a treat. So this part of the story is just wild. There's no reason to call her dog over. There's no reason to make an ominous statement and say, you're not going to like what I'm going to do next. This is what freaked her out. Obviously, this is what freaked her out. And people can't just admit that, because you need to pretend that somehow he's some perfectly innocent person that was just trying to get a dog to be on the leash. That's not what happened, okay? She now gets freaked out and says, as her dog starts going towards him, right, as he's beckoning her dog to come over, and she says, "Don't touch my dog," and runs towards her dog, who is not on a leash, grabs him by the collar, trying to get control over him, hence the video of the dog looking like he's being choked and yoked up, and he then decides to start recording. So she's now in freak out mode, right? Whether you think she should be freaking out, whether he was going to give her a treat, it's totally reasonable. If anybody, just so you know, if this was me in a situation and he did that, I would have probably taken my shoe off and beat him with it. And he would have called 911 and said, 911, what's your emergency? There's an African-American woman with a shoe who is beating me, because I would have lost my mind. You do not call my animal over to you and say you're not gonna like what I'm gonna do, period. I would have instantly been in fight mode. But she decides to try to get her dog and says, "Don't touch my dog." And that is when the recording starts, where you see her saying, "Don't touch my dog." And then he starts recording her and she's like, "Don't record me." And then she loses the plot and says, all out of nowhere, "I'm going to call the police." And he says, "Well, then call the police." And then she says, "I'm going to tell him an African-American man is threatening me." And she calls the police and says exactly that. There's an African-American man threatening my dog and threatening me. Now, people are saying that he didn't threaten her. Yes, he did. Okay. The sentence, "You're not going to like what I do next," and calling my animal over to you is a threat. I do not know what you're going to do, that I'm not going to like what you're going to do, but you're not going to do it, okay? That is a threat, okay? Now, whether she needed to state, "I'm an African-American person is here," they would have asked her. I mean, when you make a 911 call, the first thing they do is ask you for a description. Caucasian male, white male, black male, I mean, whatever it is. They ask you for a description, but that little sentence that she said has people now transforming the entire story into an incident of she called the cops because it was a black man. No, she called the cops because he threatened her dog. And he did threaten her dog, okay? So a bunch of things could have been done to de-escalate the situation. She could have put the dog on the leash and walked away. He did not need to say, "You're not going to like what I'm going to do next," and reach in his pocket and beckon her dog over, okay? He crossed a really big, thorough line, in my opinion, especially in the city where there's wackos, okay? And then number 3 is there was no reason for her to say, she could have just said, "I'm going to call 911 and tell them that a man is threatening me." I don't know why she added African-American in the sentence. I mean, but to then say that this woman deserves to have her entire life canceled. You guys want to know what's happened since? Internet sleuths placed an emergency call in for dog abuse, okay? Because the dog was being yoked up by its collar as she was trying to get it away from the guy. So now you have this dog is completely now back to being homeless, back into the shelter. They took the dog back from the woman. Secondly, they found out where she works on the, that site that everybody goes on to, that has everybody's work business on it, LinkedIn, okay, and contacted her work, and her work has placed her on leave, okay? She's been placed on leave, trending on the internet. Her name has been dug up. She's across everywhere in the nation being called a racist and has had her dog taken away from her. Which one of you people actually thinks that is acceptable? Like, who out here actually thinks that that's a normal sequence of events, that it's totally acceptable that a little scruffle in the park over something that was stupid, where 2 idiots were acting like 2 Karens, okay, and couldn't come to an agreement about how to deal with the dog off of the leash, should now suddenly result in a woman not having a job, a dog being thrown back into the pound or wherever it was, into a rescue center. This is completely out of control, but this is where we are today. Everybody wants blood all the time. Nobody can admit that 2 sides were being stupid. This is what cancel culture is all about. You want everybody to be perfect. Nobody is perfect. Nobody reacts logically in a situation where they're excited. Nobody says everything perfect all the time. What are people looking for on the internet? What do you want? Why are we so bloodthirsty? First and foremost, don't tell me that guy was looking for his 15 minutes of fame. He said an ominous statement, then whipped out his phone and started recording, and then put it on Facebook immediately after. Obviously, he was looking for it to go trending and go crazy, because he knew that if you put a white person and a black person in a story and make it about race, and somehow everyone's going to pretend that this person needs to burn, okay? He was looking for attention. She overreacted. Apparently, he was going to give her dog a treat. I still think that's really creepy and weird, but he wasn't going to try to steal her dog. Apparently, he just carries treats while he goes bird watching through the park. But this conclusion is completely unacceptable. Everybody should be upset. It's just actually not okay. This is not necessary. This is taken way too far. An apology, walk away. Case in point, let me give you an example of what goes on when race is subtracted from the narrative, right? Are we forgetting that we have situations all the time with people, no matter what their color is, people that we don't like, right? Whether you're sitting in traffic and you see somebody, maybe, I don't know, Hispanic, white, black, you cut somebody off, you say F you and move away. Is it about race when that happens? Is it about race when you tell somebody they're annoying you? Is it about race when you say F you to somebody that's annoying you in a store, or dealing with somebody at the counter? Is it always about race? Is that where we're at in society? That no matter what, if people don't match each other's skin tone, then it has to be because there's some deep-seated racial hatred, like we live in the 1920s. We don't live in the 1920s. 9 times out of 10, it's two people that are annoying each other, people that don't like each other, okay? That's usually what's going on. Case in point, I had a situation happen at Chipotle the other day. I shouldn't tell you guys situation because you're going to think I'm crazy, and it's a little embarrassing, but I was a little hangry, okay? So I went to Chipotle the other day, and I wanted to get a salad, and I walked however many blocks to get to Chipotle, and literally 10 feet before I get into the door, I realize that I don't have a mask, okay? And they have a sign on the door saying, if you don't have a mask, you're not allowed to come in. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take my shirt and tie it around my face, and because I had 2 shirts on, because I was in workout gear. So I take my shirt off and tie it around my face, and I go to the counter and I start ordering the salad, and the lady at the counter starts making the salad, and then her senior manager runs over, and it's like, excuse me, you're not allowed to be in here if you don't have an actual medical mask, right? You can't just have your shirt around your face. So I was looking at her and I was like, you know what? That doesn't make any sense, because she had a cloth black mask around her face. I had a cloth shirt around my face, and there was no difference. And I said, so explain to me what the difference is between you having cloth around your face and me not having cloth around my face. Now, mind you, this woman was Hispanic, I'm black. So nobody is here thinking it's going to turn into a racial disaster or we need to whip out our phones or anything, right? Nobody's like, oh, the white woman doesn't want to feed the black person, or the white manager is being tough on the black woman. Nope, it was just a normal situation of 2 people that were about to go at it, and she looks at me and she's like, well, that's just the rule. And I'm looking at her like, okay, doorman, you know that movie, like doorman, all right, doorman, being such a doorman right now. And I was like, well, I'm not leaving. No one else is in the store. There's no reason for me to have to be kicked out. So you can go get your manager. And I told her to go get her manager. Okay. So she then turns around and goes to get her manager to go tell me the rule that for some reason me having a thing around my face does not work. And I'm just all fired up. I'm like ready to go to prison over a chicken salad at Chipotle. I just woke up on that side of the bed. You know, I was hungry, a little hormonal. I don't know what happened. This was the hill that I was willing to die on. Okay? Yeah, of course, retrospectively, it sounds a little crazy, but this is what was going on in my head, okay? So she goes back, and about 3-4 minutes later, she comes back, and she just looks at me, and she's like, you know what? Never mind. And I was like, yeah, never mind. And she made my salad, and I left, and the situation did not get escalated any further. Of course, when I got home, after I ate, and I was no longer hangry, I was like, you know what? I could have gone back and just gotten my mask from home. It would have been taking an extra 20 minutes. It wasn't that big of a deal. And then when I saw her a couple of days later, I saw her in the same Chipotle, and she was like, hello. I was like, hi. We were pleasant with each other. Perfect experience, because neither one of us was looking to escalate the situation. She thought I was being a Karen. I thought she was being a Karen. I was probably a little hungry. She was probably taking her job a little too seriously, you know? And it was it. Just human beings being weird, doing weird stuff, who can walk away, right? That is how 9 out of 10 situations should happen. But in the social media age, everybody wants the 15 minutes. Nobody can admit that 2 people play a role in a stupid circumstance. Nobody can admit that Ahmaud Arbery was not just a jogger, right? You can't, not allowed to do that. Nobody can admit that this dude just did not have a right to summon her dog and to say, you're not gonna like what I'm gonna do next. Nobody wants to admit that she could have just put the dog on the chain and walked away. But now we just want everybody's lives to be ruined. And the answer is why? Why? What are we so hungry for? Does it make us feel good when somebody else's life gets worried? Does he feel good? Does Christopher Cooper feel good? Knowing that he played the Karen role and wanted to come over and be a state park sergeant. You know, he wanted to be a park sergeant and come over and police her dog. And now this woman has lost her job and her dog. Who wins in this situation? Does the internet win? Does that feel good? I'm going to cancel Jimmy Fallon, cancel every person until there's no one left to cancel. I mean, we have to start asking these questions, man. Like, to me, it's just getting old. It's getting ridiculous. People want me to apologize for having an opinion because it doesn't match theirs. I don't care if you don't agree with me. I have a right to use my brain to think and to not just see race in every single. Anyways, I just wanted to have this video session to talk about cancel culture and all the things that need to change. And I hope that this woman gets her life back. I hope that, you know, this guy has a little bit of reflection and realizes that that situation never needed to get to that level. And if you're in Central Park, you better put your dog on a leash. Thanks, guys.